Let's move on. The big news of the weekend. Penn State has allegedly maybe sort of hired a defensive coordinator. The board of trustees hasn't met to whatever those meetings are called that they have to sign the contract or whatever. But it sounds like former Indiana coach Tom Allen is going to be coming to State College to be defensive coordinator. It's kind of funny because I think collectively a lot of people thought the second that Tom Allen was fired and everybody kind of knew what was going to happen with Manny Diaz is, what about Tom Allen as defensive coordinator? I I don't know. I think I like it. I think I like it. And I think that's about where I'm at with it. I think I like it.
Why the hesitation?
Here's why the hesitation. It's just because of his energy. It's very strong. It's very strong. And I think that's the main thing that I've always kind of thought. Tom Allen seems like a certified weirdo, and that's coming from somebody that considers himself a weirdo. Um, and he seems like he has his heart in the right place. Um, it's just he comes off as a lot, and that was surprising to me, I guess, that James Franklin wants that on his staff. But then when you kind of look at it from the practical standpoint, let's look at like previous defensive coordinators, right? Bob Shoop, Brent Pry, Manny Diaz, and now Tom Allen. Kind of all sort of Franklin's right-hand man, or kind of sort of somebody that he seemed like James Franklin can trust. And I think that's why practically this hire was made. And I think that's why he went after a former head coach once again in this whole decision making process. I am excited to see what Tom Allen also can do with the defense or with the talent that he couldn't probably get at in Indiana, because I think that's going to be the biggest game changer for him is, he had a lot of interesting and good schemes. Look at how tough they played Penn State or even Ohio State over the years. And when you put that together, some of those deficiencies, I guess, result in talent on the field that Penn State has. Like a lot of Indiana kids are 2 and 3 stars versus 3, 4, 5 stars that you get at Penn State. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed. It seems like a lot of players like him. So that's why I say I think I like it. Steve, how do you feel about it?
I think almost the same, and I couldn't verbalize it that way when I first saw it. It was just like, I don't know about this. Seems kind of quirky. But the more I thought about it, head coach, right? In a place, a head coach knows not to undermine the existing head coach. So that's great. Like he's going to come in, focus on his defense, do what he's supposed to do. Quirky as a coordinator is much better than quirky as a coach. And it's easier to be quirky or hide that a little bit as part of a program where it's just easier to win. I mean, Indiana is it might be one of the toughest jobs in the country for all the reasons everybody knows, right? The teams you're playing, the talent you can get, and all that. So yeah, I think it frees Allen up to have better talent. Coach up his X's and O's, bring the energy and the loyalty from the players that apparently he does from his players, and will gain from the Penn State players probably, and be in a position to succeed. So I think at first I was probably not impressed. I was like, okay, that should be okay. But I may be a stronger okay now after a couple of days of thinking about it. And it doesn't seem like he's going to be, and I don't know that Manny Diaz was, but he's not going to be a personality threat to James Franklin, right? He's not going to be like the defensive coordinator that's more popular. He's just going to be that guy who knows what he's doing, talks to the media twice a year, and the people are like, okay, that's kind of cool. As opposed to clearly going to get another job somewhere. Like I think he could be here for a little longer than Manny Diaz was, right? Like I think this feels more like get comfortable, get here, and it's 4 years or so at least, unless something's really crazy. Because I don't know, like because he hasn't won as a head coach. Diaz kind of got forced out, felt like it was a raw deal at Miami. Things might have been coming along, and Allen may be better than Indiana because the Indiana job's so tough, but. I think I'm leaning toward more toward good than just okay after thinking about it a couple days.
I certainly have more opinions or more feelings on this hiring than the Andy Kotelnicki hire, and take that what you will, I guess. Like I at least once you get past Tom Allen, the personality, you can see the track record here. It is a proven hire to a degree, even if I mean he had to be a good defensive coordinator somewhere to get that job at Indiana. Like you don't just get handed a head coaching job somewhere. And it is, for as much as it is Indiana, it still is a Big Ten job. Like they're still going to make the hire because they think he can do something with it. And he at least made Indiana fun for a couple seasons there. At least kept them relevant and interesting. I haven't. What I haven't done is really sat down and we're gonna do it, I think, right now and sat down and thought through the optics, I guess would be the best way to say it, of the fact that James Franklin hired the guy that was the coach of the team that derailed the 2020 season and then basically set the program back for a year. And that hire probably has to work out in the way of, at minimum, at least the second round trip to the college football playoff, maybe just a trip to the college football playoff in the 12 teams era every year, every other year at minimum type thing, all on the back of the fact that his defense is going to rest with this guy that set his program back. And I think that was also maybe some of the head scratching processing that I went through this weekend with the hire.
I think that's a fair roundabout assessment of the logic of it. Although I think it's not his fault that the program got set back. Like his signature win,
no.
his signature win just happened to come against Penn State.
Yeah.
Right. And Penn State didn't deal with it very well. So yeah, but I think that's a good assessment, right? Like, I mean, they've got to, but it's every hire. It's offensive coordinator to everything else now. Next season, as we talked about before, is the season where Penn State probably needs to be one of 12. I mean, again, the expectations are they'll be one of 12. Again, I don't think there's any pressure on the coach next year if they're not in the top 12. I just don't. I don't think it'll change next year yet because the buyout number's too big and people aren't still too big and they aren't talking about that. But I think people's expectations are next year. Yeah, look at us. We were 10th this year. Good Lord, why won't we be in the top 12 next year? Forget what the schedule looks like from afar, whatever, and the 5-game run that looks kind of tough now. Penn State should be there, I think, is what fans feel. Some fans feel. Maybe most fans feel.
Well, and the body isn't even cold on the 2023 season, but I think that's a fair way to look at it. I think I've said that they need to make the playoff next year. Like, there's no excuse. Penn State is not a top 4 team in the country. Penn State is not a top 4 program in the country right now. The numbers would suggest that, the wins, but they certainly have what's the stat that keeps going around about how they're going to be the first, if they win the Peach Bowl, the first school to win all of the New Year's Six, and they've done 3 of those in however many years now. So yes, to me, they are a top 10 to 15 program. So can you be in that top 12? And I think that's why with this hire, it is why I think he went with somebody proven and didn't maybe go out on the limb as much. Because I think like the Mike Yursich hire, and you're kind of almost apples to oranges, right? Like the Mike Yursich hire was kind of out of nowhere just because it was not just the hiring of him, but the firing of Kirk Chiraka after the COVID season, which kind of sort of didn't count type thing. And then it didn't really work out. And it seemed like it was more of it still seems like it was more of a workplace issue in terms of we didn't get work together well. I mean, they still were putting up a lot of points. They just, in the games that mattered, the coaching wasn't there. And some of that is on the head coach more so. But James Franklin isn't a defensive coach. So I think that's why the Manny Diaz hire was such a surprise, but was a great hire. And I think that's why I'm not going to go out and say it's a great hire, because I think I don't like saying that, because I think the records have to or the games have to play before that's really decided. But I think that's why it's the hire that made a lot of sense. It is an aggressive one, and I'm going to say it feels like a safe hire that you're not screwing up the momentum that you built with the defense this season in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and let me go stand-up comedy. It's safe right? Like safe would have been in some ways internal, Poindexter or somebody else that people wanted. I think what you get from going outside the program, you get the head coach, but you get the outside the program perspective, right? Tom Allen's going to know, hey, what did you guys do for Ohio State? What did you guys do for Michigan? Like, talk me through some of your schemes and processes and why you did this and that you just don't have. If you promote from within, you're just bring in folks whose ideas who've had their voice around the table before. Someone from the outside who's capable of doing the job and certainly qualified to do the job also brings some different ideas to put around that table to discuss, to debate, to self-scout. And I think that's valuable.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Because it gets you out of the group think, I guess, mentality and gets you somebody in the room that can at least question it. And a lot of the times there's good results based off of questioning something of why are you doing it this way, regardless of it's football or work or whatever.
He's
So
got the leeway to at least play dumb for the first year. I mean, not dumb, but
yeah,
to at least to ask why this and why that about processes, while somebody from within would say, okay, we've done this before, here we go, even if they're going to add their own spin on it. Somebody
right.
from the outside gets to say, why this? And he has the credibility as a head coach of saying, okay, let's listen to what he's got to say.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, I think the other thing that we kind of want to at least allude to the fact here is, and some of it's more so the absence or the departure of Manny Diaz is the James Franklin coaching tree is it's a nice little, it's not a sapling anymore, I guess would be the best way to say it. I know that Manny Diaz was him leaving was probably a foregone conclusion from the second he signed at Penn State, but
How
I
many
think
years
James
does he need
Frank
to work with you to get to be in your tree?
I I
I mean,
think
I'm not discounting it.
well,
I'm just,
so,
is 2 years
well, but I
enough?
think yes, it is
Okay.
because because really that's only one class that Manny Diaz recruited. So you have to execute, I think, and complete that execution on the field. And that some of that goes back to the fact that you need to be hired for that position. So I think, yes, I think and I think that's interesting. And I think, I don't think, I think James Franklin, for as much crap as he takes, probably deserves a little bit of credit for that. It might not be, it might not sell tickets. It might be another social media graphic type victory,
I'll
but
make it
it's at
bigger than
least
that.
something.
No, I'll make it bigger than social media. I think it goes to, I think his coaching tree, no matter how long they've been there, Gerard Parker, who's now at Troy, that came up today, went from Notre
Mhm.
Dame to Troy, the guy at Marshall,
Plus,
yeah, I mean, I think it goes to credibility as a football coach, which Franklin, everybody says he's the CEO coach, right? And the knock had been through the years, all X's and O's, game day, right? I think the more people you have out there that you've rubbed elbows with, that have coached with you, that you've been their boss, I think that brings some credibility when they've still got jobs that were promotions from the job they had with you. And I think that speaks to the football knowledge for him, which maybe twice in his 10 years, he's really gotten fired up about at news conferences and defended himself and his record. Um, so yeah, I think it is kind of big that the tree's growing that way.
yeah, I think I also think like going back to the top 10 program, top 15 program idea, like you have to perform to get hired, like for all of these other coaches to get hired out. And for the most part, most of them have. I think Rick Urani would be the one that like people kind of debate was he leaving, was he going type thing. Um, but for the most part, you look at every person that has been elevated to a higher level position, whether it's internally or externally, it's because of the results that they've had. Dion Barnes is a great example of that. Brent Pry is the poster child for that. And I really think Virginia Tech's going to become a bigger problem. In at least in the ACC, it just takes time for a lot of these coaches, and I think that's the issue with college football right now is we collectively don't have a lot of patience. So I don't know. I think that was just something I wanted to bring up on the podcast and chat through.